Baldur's Gate 3 has been dominating on PC. Basically old school style RPG, meaningful choices, brilliant writing and characters, and a fantasy world with dragons and eldritch horrors.
Such a tease.
It must be breaking records for how many players have been concurrently playing this RPG, and that's on Steam alone. Bear in mind we can't see the player numbers on other stores like GOG.
How regrettable.
It has been pretty fantastic so far, and if it keeps this up, it's definitely going to be a contender for my Game of the Year.
Fuck yes!
So why are PC gamers going crazy over Baldur's Gate 3? Well, apart from being released to critical acclaim and amazing review scores, well, it's simply a finished game in 2023. Let me explain.
I can explain.
You're paying for a reasonably priced game and it just works. You don't need to get out a matrix chart to work out which versions of the game are missing which content. It's just a finished game with all the features it promised on the cover, and it is polished. I've barely experienced any bugs, which is brilliant for an RPG of this scale, and that's what you'll see in a lot of the user reviews on Steam. A lot of them express just how happy they are to have a game without microtransactions, paywalls, battle passes, season passes, pre-order exploitative content. It's an online multiplayer game that allows you to play offline. And these reviews aren't anomalies, they're getting tens of thousands of upvotes and loads of love. Players are tired of all the shady exploitative practices going on in the games industry.
No use sugarcoating it, is there?
I can contrast Baldur's Gate 3 with another recently released game on Steam, Overwatch 2. Now Overwatch 2 is a free-to-play game, but it easily ends up being more expensive than Baldur's Gate 3. Plenty of shady business practices going on, and I could talk about that all day, but mainly empty promises with major features and selling points of the game cancelled. Now, while Baldur's Gate 3 has over 150,000 reviews, very positive and overwhelmingly positive, at the same time Overwatch 2 has managed to build up over 110,000 reviews, and they're very negative, making Overwatch 2 the worst reviewed game on Steam. There's a sharp contrast between the two games and the practices of their developers. I genuinely believe that players are just getting sick of all the broken games and dodgy stuff. I think it's fantastic that Steam allows players to write their own reviews on games, and I hope that Baldur's Gate 3 developers Larian Studios and Overwatch 2's developers Activision Blizzard, I hope they take this player feedback on board. Well, not just them, but the entire games industry. I hope they're paying attention to what's going on. Hey, I'm trying to grow the channel, any likes or subs would be an amazing help. I focus a lot on RPGs and you're going to want to stay subscribed to see where Baldur's Gate 3 comes in my top 10 games of 2023 at the end of the year. Thank you. Baldur's Gate 3 is a fantastic RPG. I've been talking about the politics around the games industry, but don't get me wrong, BG3 does very much stand on its own merits, and that's why it's been getting incredibly high review scores. From my own experiences so far, the quality of the writing and characters has been exceptional, and nothing has come close for a long time. I genuinely want to interact and chat with all of the game's party members and see their own personal stories.
I'm sure we'll get along perfectly well.
But this is a game where decisions and choices matter and completely change the direction of the story, but somehow, even with all the freedom and choices, the storytelling is still brilliant. Something I think is interesting is a contrast with Final Fantasy 16. Now, Final Fantasy 16 is great, but a major criticism, and my own big criticism with 16, is that there weren't enough RPG elements.
Say that again.
Its producer is even quoted saying that JRPGs are bad, and he doesn't want Final Fantasy 16 to be associated with its turn-based JRPG legacy, and we kind of ended up with an action-focused spectacle fighter instead of an RPG. Which was a great game, but it left a lot of us core RPG players hungry for some more of those RPG elements that previous Final Fantasy games did so well. To me, Baldur's Gate 3 is another example that there's plenty of players who do actually like deep RPGs, and even turn-based combat can work today. In fact, it's so much of an RPG that it's very close to Dungeons & Dragons in video game form. And I know so many friends who want to experience Dungeons & Dragons, but they don't have the friend groups or access to a dungeon master to play D&D. Baldur's Gate 3 with its online co-op is the next best thing to actual Dungeons & Dragons, and I think that's helped contribute to its mainstream success on PC. One last thing I want to talk about is the developers Larian Studios. Believe it or not, they actually released Baldur's Gate 3 earlier than the original release date, probably so they don't have to compete with Starfield. That is kind of insane. We see so many games delayed these days, and when they do finally launch, they're broken and unfinished like Cyberpunk.
Sorry for this.
Larian Studios set contingency time to make sure Baldur's Gate 3 was finished and polished up, and they ended up not needing all of that contingency time, and it allowed them to target a better release date and maximize their profits. This game is brilliant. If you're on console, you've got a lot to look forward to. I am loving this, and I loved their previous game, Divinity Original Sin 2. After that, I went into this with high expectations, and they're being exceeded. I want to hear from you guys. Have you guys picked up Baldur's Gate 3? Are you enjoying it? Let me know in the comments, and peace for now. I'm off to play some more.